Good evening and namaste to all of you. It's a pleasure for me to share my thoughts, ideas, and experiences as regards yoga therapy. Obviously, today I'm going to speak to you about yoga therapy. Despite classical yoga, that is Patanjali's yoga, being a preventive discipline, propagating the idea of a healthy lifestyle, and ideally considered as a moksha shastra leading towards liberation, one cannot deny the fact that to a great extent yoga is popular today because of its therapeutic aspects, its therapeutic potential. Most of the time today, a person who comes into the domain of yoga for the first time comes because of some health issues for which he is looking for solutions. He or she would have tried, tested other therapies, and as a matter of last resort, one ventures into the domain of yoga looking for some solution to health issues. Nothing wrong about this. So, the popularity of yoga today, to a great extent, is dependent upon the therapeutic benefits that yoga practices provide. Hence, it is essential for us to understand in the right perspective yoga as a therapy. In the first place, when we use the word therapy, therapy stands for treatment meant for providing relief or totally cure or heal a disorder. Having said that, when we look at yoga as a therapy, then two things come to the fore. One is yoga is considered as an alternate therapy, alternate to allopathic treatment, as well as alternate to other alternate therapies. Secondly, when we talk about yoga therapy, we are talking about therapy provided through yoga practices. Yoga practices can be kriyas, asanas, pranayam, mudras, bandhas, meditation, relaxation practices, yoga nidra, and so on and so forth. This is the general understanding of yoga as therapy. I would like to set right this understanding because when we talk about yoga as a therapy, the first point to be borne in mind, I am talking based upon experience of administering yoga therapy to a number of people. The first point to be remembered is when we talk about yoga therapy, we are talking about therapy through yoga practices and yoga philosophy. This is very, very essential. The second part, the philosophical part, is very crucial. Otherwise, if, for example, for a person of hypertension, we prescribe some tranquilizing breathing practices, some relaxation practices like shavasana or yoga nidra, and then assume that that is the proper treatment, then we are mistaken, because then we are treating only the symptoms of hypertension, not the causes of hypertension. Providing therapy through yoga practices exclusively is like providing or prescribing a tablet for headache. As soon as you take the tablet, you will get relief. To some extent, headache will go, but because the cause is not dealt with, the headache will come back again. So, the point to be remembered is, unless and until the person who is taking treatment is abreast of yoga philosophy, and by yoga philosophy I mean the approach to life, the attitude taken towards life, the values in life, the priorities in life, the goal of life. If these things are not set right, then yoga therapy will never be effective. The second point which I want to mention, yoga therapy is holistic in the sense when you administer yoga therapy, You are actually dealing with the person and not with the problem of the person. When a person comes to me with severe migraine or headache, I will not talk in the initial place about migraine or headache. I will talk about the person himself or herself. What is he doing, what job he is doing after, what is his earning, what are his social relationships, and where is the problem. When you set the person right, or the perspective of the person right, the problem is not there at all. The problem belongs to the person is not the problem. Yoga therapy is holistic. That is why it is a lifestyle, yogic lifestyle, which is more effective in yoga therapy than yoga practices per se. The third point which I want to mention is that based upon yoga philosophy, one can very well assert that health in yoga is a byproduct and not an end product. Health is a means to a goal. It is not a goal by itself of yoga. To clarify my thought, what I mean to say is, according to yoga philosophy, a human being is made up of Purusha and Prakriti. The Purusha in the human being is the consciousness. The Prakriti in the human being is the body and the mind. Now, disorders belong to body and mind. And the real self of the human being is the Purusha of the consciousness. So, health pertains to Prakriti, the so-called false self, the body and the mind. Yes, the body and mind need to be healthy, but that is not the goal of yoga. The health of the body and the mind is meant for transcending the body and the mind and go towards consciousness. Health is a means in yoga, not the goal of yoga. The fourth point that I want to mention is, in yoga, like in all other therapies, there is definitely a framework. The yogic therapy is operated within a framework, and that framework has its own limitations like all other therapies. Unless and until we recognize and accept these limitations, we will be falsely led to believe that yoga is a panacea for all the problems of human life. Personal and social, physical and mental, psychological and spiritual. No, yoga is not that. Yoga is not a cure-all, cure everybody, cure all the time. No, it has got its own limitations. These are some of the factors which we have to keep at the back of the mind when we consider yoga as a therapy. Having cleared this ground of yoga as a therapy, I would now like to express the fact that yogic therapy can be seen from 4 dimensions. The first dimension is the preventive dimension. The second dimension is the therapy or the curing part. The third dimension is the healing part. And the fourth, the most important dimension, is the transformation part. Let me elaborate a little bit on each of this. When we talk about yoga as a preventive discipline in therapy, we are laying emphasis on the essence of classical yoga, the yoga as propounded by the basic text of yoga philosophy, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. You'll be surprised to know that there is no mention of any specific physical ailment or any specific mental ailment. No mention of any specific treatment for any physical ailment. In fact, Patanjali uses only the word vyadhi, physical ailment, as an antaraya or obstacle for the mind in the process of getting concentrated. So, removal of diseases is meant for enabling the mind to get concentrated and reach the goal of yoga, which is samadhi. And beautifully, samadhi is a term where there is no adi, no vyadhi, no mental ailment, no physical ailment. So, classical yoga as propounded by Patanjali's Yoga Sutras is purely a preventive discipline. And by preventive discipline, what do we mean? What we mean is, if a person adopts the yogic lifestyle where he or she practices the yoga practices, whether it is kriyas, asanas, pranayam, mudras, bandhas, meditation, and to this a cautious approach towards diet, sattvic diet is added, rest, relaxation, recreation, and exertion added to an optimum level, then we have an optimum health style, a lifestyle which leads to health, and such a person does not fall sick, so no treatment is necessary. If you follow the yogic lifestyle, therapy becomes redundant. That is why in ancient times, yoga was the moksha shastra leading towards moksha, and Ayurveda, the complementary part, was taking care about health there. This is the first part. Yoga is a preventive discipline as far as health is concerned. It will prevent a person from falling sick. It will preserve good health. And if you follow the yogic lifestyle, it will promote your health also. The second dimension that I am talking about is the therapy dimension for which yoga is popular today. This fact of therapy and the efficacy of yogic practices as far as therapy is concerned is coming from Hatha Yoga textbooks. So, number of practices are given with specific benefits for specific ailments, specific parts of the body, specific physiological systems of the body. This is the yoga therapy which is popular today in the external world. The third dimension that I want to talk about is the capacity of yoga to bring about healing. And when I talk about healing, what I understand and what I want to convey is the empowerment provided by yoga to a person to endure pain and strain of situations in life. Specifically speaking, if a person is suffering from terminal diseases, see for example cancer, diseases for which there is no cure available, and a person diagnosed with such problem who is just biding for death to happen, who has got a limited time period available to live, for such a person, yoga is a boon in disguise, because yoga can actually provide emotional support to that person, empower the person emotionally to stand this situation, to bear the difficulties of the situation, and even to look forward or change the perspective towards life in the brief period that is available to him. This is where yoga philosophy and yogic counseling play a major part. Also, the efficacy of yoga in healing comes about when a person, for instance, has lost a near and dear one, and the pain and the hurt feelings are too much to bear. It is in this junction that yoga can provide counseling, can strengthen the emotional foundations of the person so that he is able to bear, tolerate, take that pain in the stride and continue living life in the normal manner. This is the strength of yoga, yogic philosophy, yogic counseling. I am coming to the last dimension of yogic therapy, and for me that is the most important dimension. Unfortunately, the dimension is never spoken about in modern times, and that dimension is the transformational dimension of yoga. The capacity of yoga to bring about a transformation in a person's life, in a person's approach to life, in a person's approach to choosing the goal of life and realizing the goal of life. This transformation is specifically meant for people who are healthy, people who are healed, people who are educated, people who are affluent, who seemingly have no problems. But even when you look at such people, When their philosophical perspective is not proper, their answer to the question, who am I, is not settled, you will find them inextricably entangled in the maze of life and suffering all the problems that every person in the world suffers. It is the most appropriate time, the right time for such people to go through transformation philosophically, ideologically, take the help of yoga philosophy, yoga counseling, and see themselves in so-called proper light. So when such a person appreciates in the right perspective who he is or who she is, then the total outlook towards life changes. There is a transformation which happens. In all other dimensions, there is only change which is happening. And to bring about the distinction between change and transformation, when A changes to B, if it is a change, then B can become A again all the time. But when we talk about transformation, A transforming to B, then the B can never become A again. A good example is a caterpillar transforming to a butterfly. The butterfly can never become a caterpillar again. Yoga has this power, this capacity of bringing about a transformation in the person. And for me, this is the most important dimension of yogic therapy. Yoga can actually, this is in fact very interesting. We also consider yoga as a culture, a universal culture. And when we talk about the etymological meaning of the word Samskruti, which is the culture in Sanskrit language, then yoga brings about a purification, a refinement of human personality. And that is the transformation we are talking about. Slowly the person transforms. No way to fall back upon the same mess of life that he or she is created, hankering after fulfillment of one desire after another, getting attached here, getting attached there. You are setting your perspective towards life in the right manner using yoga philosophy, and you are a totally transformed person. So, to summarize, yogic therapy can be seen in 4 dimensions. The first dimension is the preventive dimension, which along with preventing illnesses happening also preserves and promotes good health. The second dimension is the therapeutic dimension, bringing about a cure, total therapy for an ailment which the person is going through. The third is the healing dimension, where therapy is not possible. Yoga can provide healing, empower the person to bear his problems in a proper manner. And the fourth dimension is the transformational capacity of yoga, where the person starts viewing himself, the life and the world, Jeev, Jagat and Ishvara, in the proper manner, so that he is once for all turned around the corner and now moving towards bliss there. The last point which I want to make here, even when we come to yoga therapy, the reason why yoga is popular today, as a therapist, I can say we are not utilizing the entire capacity of yoga, because we are using only Hatha yoga practices for therapy of yoga, whereas there are so many other dimensions. There is Tantra yoga, Nadi yoga, Mantra yoga, Kundalini yoga. All of them have got rich treasure capacity for bringing about therapy for a person who is not well. Yoga has infinite capacity as far as therapy is concerned, as far as transformation is concerned. Thank you very much.